This is Techstrong TV.
Hi everyone, Mitch Ashley. We are here at Team 24 Atlassian in Las Vegas, Nevada. So having some great conversations. One of my favorite topics, talking about Agile and DevOps, speaking of which, Matt Schvimmer, who is SVP of Agile and DevOps, correct?
Yes, that's it. Great to be here, Mitch.
Nice. We've been bumping into each other we finally get to talk, so
That's
been
right.
looking forward to this.
That's right, not in a casino setting.
Not
Very
at a
nice.
casino or a Starbucks or whatever. So let's tell folks about what you do. I'm sure Agile and DevOps are probably a lot of people's passions. So what do you do at Atlassian?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm responsible for the Agile and DevOps portfolio. That includes Jira Line, Jira, like that's the combination of Jira Software and Jira Work Management that I'm sure we'll talk about.
Yep.
Compass, JPD, and Bitbucket. So all the
what's
tools that
JPD?
develop. Oh, sorry, acronyms. Jira Product Discovery.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
If there's one thing DevOps likes, it's a good 3-letter acronym.
TLAs. We were all about the acronyms, right? Yep. Great. We've talked about discovery quite a bit too. Had one of the folks on with that. So, so being in charge of, being head of, what does that mean? I mean, it's got to be a lot of responsibility here.
Yeah. Well, it's really about driving the product strategy to make sure what we're building matches what the customers are asking for. So it's kind of meeting customers where they are, making sure we have a prioritized roadmap, that our products fit together in a very coherent way and are differentiated in a compelling manner for customers to love.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so a lot of what my team does is we're focused on the development team as job one, and job two is kind of the extended organization of all the different players involved in the software development lifecycle, from executive leaders to the product managers to the operations folks, how that all comes together.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we think about.
I'm curious, because I've worked in the security-based space too. In security, you design a product to solve this problem, to look for this kind of attack or whatever it might be. In DevOps, it's not a tool. It's a way of creating software, a way of collaborating.
Yes.
Philosophy around smaller units of work, automating feedback loops, all those kind of things. Similarly, a lot of it's lifted out of Agile as well, how we work together. And certainly, tools are part of doing that, helping us do CI/CD pipelines and all that kind of thing.
Sure.
How do you support organizations where I might be at the beginning of, what's this DevOps and how do we get started, to be like, we're close to, from mastery to unicorn status of knowing how to leverage DevOps and Agile. That's a big spectrum of skills and knowledge.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%. I don't know if there's ever an end to that spectrum, right? It continues to evolve in pretty interesting and amazing ways. Security is a good example that you brought that up.
I'm oversimplifying, but yeah, just as an analogy.
No, it was a great representation of DevOps is not one thing. DevOps is a collection of processes, right? And the thing about we've been focused on Atlassian is how do we connect all those different pieces, right? And that's been Atlassian's focus. When you think about, we launched, I think it was 2 years ago, Open DevOps as the initiative, right? And it really is that acknowledgement that you're always going to have best practice tools to meet certain jobs to be done, but it's about how we connect that graph of all those tools.
There's the graph word again. We're talking about the graph.
We talk a lot about the graph,
which I think is great, by the way.
It's incredibly critical. It's fundamental to our strategy.
It is. It's a differentiator for you, I think, a big one.
Yeah, it's 100%. Like a lot of the investments you see here, I'm talking about developer experience. A lot of the investments we're doing are delivering value from the graph to make the knowledge worker a lot smarter at the point of whatever part of the DevOps process they're responsible for.
It's kind of the neural system behind all the work that's happening that knows who's doing what and work's happening and helps you kind of plug in, jack in like Neo and
Neo. I sometimes call our founder Neo in the Matrix.
Neo, okay. Oh, well,
yes.
Hopefully that's a compliment.
I don't know if he appreciates that. Hopefully he doesn't hear this.
Well, you're still working here, so I guess it's okay.
So far.
So far. So many things that I'd love to talk to you about. There's a lot of discussion about platforms, not just here, but also in the industry of moving to more platforms things rather than siloed, integrated tools. IT gets in the business of integrating tools rather than creating software because it just gets so more complex. What does the platform strategy look like for Open DevOps and Agile, and you're part of that platform?
Yeah, so at the core of the platform is work. So you hear a lot in the show about the system of work.
System of work.
And Jira is really that kind of, if you think about DevOps as a hub and spoke system, will go with me on this riff a bit.
I'll follow you wherever you go.
Okay. All right, I'll remember that. So Jira is really the hub, right? We manage all of that work, and the spokes are, we understand the connectivity to all the other information across that DevOps lifecycle, right? We understand the signals and feedback and ideas that come in on the front end. We understand from designers, from maybe in Figma or Adobe, what they're designing, how they're iterating on it, right? We understand from observability tools, once we throw things over the wall, hopefully not throw it all, release it to production, DevOps
The virtual wall.
The virtual wall that we're going to tear down. We're going to tear down this wall. So when we turn it over to operations, we understand the impact to all the different services what we've deployed, and we can provide from that connectivity from Jira, that hub, that amount of intelligence, because we could connect all those different pieces and make it kind of a coherent value stream, if you will, of how it all fits together.
There is the value stream. There's the idea of flow, right?
Yep.
Helping create and maximize, remove barriers and make things happen more fluidly.
That's right.
It sounds like that's kind of one of the thinking behind having the graph, having the data, having the tools, but it's all about making that work together.
Yeah, and a lot of times people will talk about it as if it's about productivity. I'm not sure that's the right word. I think like a lot of what I talk about is about dev experience. And it's about reducing friction and cognitive load so that things flow easier.
Yeah.
Right? And so no matter where you are in that stage, you have the information to make that process more informed, smoother, faster. So not necessarily productivity.
Cognitive load's a huge,
Yep.
it's a massive issue, especially in context switching. Not to make us all computers, but it's I'm doing 5 things and every one of those takes a certain amount of context switch to get myself back in that headspace to work on that problem. Where was I? Okay, now I can start to work again.
Yeah.
So how do you help with that? I mean, I think you're right. It's not just productivity. I wish it was that simple.
This is definitely not one of those Lord of the Rings, one ring to rule them all kind of things. There's a lot of different ways, I think, to do that. One is, I'll try to not say AI too many times, but
it's an okay word to use.
We're all among friends. Yeah. So in AI, one of the ways we're using that is to, when you come back, gives you context shift a lot. You might jump and time slice on different things. When you come back, how can we use AI to surface just immediately what's changed or what has happened since you last took action on something? So giving you up-to-date information, like one of the things in Jira Line we're doing for this, by the way, if you think about an executive leader who hates to read, has 5-minute information.
There's a few of those around.
There's a lot. There's a lot of those. We won't name names.
No judging.
No judgment. No judgment. But you have to have. You need to get in there. You need to be brief. You need to be bright. You need to be gone. I love to be brief, be bright, be gone.
Be valuable during your valuable time.
AI gives us that. It allows us to summarize information for a leader to say, here's what you missed, and here's what we recommend. So that's one way we're doing it. The other way is from the system of work, by taking advantage of all these products being on Atlassian's platform, we're surfacing information within applications more coherently so that you don't have to jump around. One example you'll see here is, I'm going to talk about Compass. That's our developer experience platform. And it allows you, just one quick aside here, it allows you to track all of your different microservices, all your components across your ecosystem, right? The health of those components, the dependencies, there's a bunch I can talk about there. But what we've done is we've surfaced that inside of Jira so that when you're working on an issue, I can associate the right components, the right services, the right APIs to the issues. So developers don't have to go and search for what the heck am I supposed to be working on, right? And it's also easy to get insight when we talked about some of the metrics that you want to get out of. You want to see what I'm investing in each of these different services. By connecting that at the unit of work, again, the hub, we have more granular insight to understand how much we're investing in, how much of this unit is changing, that kind of thing.
How does it's a great topic, and I appreciate you explaining it that way. back in the day, I remember Crucible and Bamboo and some of the tools. I don't know if they're still around or not, but doing code reviews and developers, we live in the IDE so much.
Yeah.
And having to bring up a bug tracking system and, whatever documentation and my repository. And yeah, I can have a window or a tab in my browser for all those things, but that's for one problem set. Then I need to go work on a different, which may be a whole different set of things. How do you incorporate that? That's the neat thing about developers, because they also have their IDE that they're working in addition to the interface.
Oh yeah. The IDE is not going away.
Yeah. Matter of fact, it's getting more complicated, I think.
It's what isn't happening is that we're not going to double the number of developers in the next few years, right? The goal is we have to empower developers to do a lot more, right? And so some of that is in the IDE. Like one of the things that we're going to talk about is how we're making other copilots smarter. So inside the IDE, anything except that we have access to within the teamwork graph, you can ask questions to within, if you're using Tab 9, you're using GitHub Copilot, Codium, any of those things, we put the power of Atlassian within that Copilot. So make them more productive in the editor. But a lot of what we're doing, because we're not adding that many more developers, to my point before, we're finding ways to make it less necessary to get into the editor in all situations. So for people that come to the super session, they'll see how we're doing something we call auto dev, which is taking a unit of work, and when we feel confident, like unit of work being a description of an epic or an issue, and being able to automatically code that and be able to say, so from an issue, develop it if we have a high degree of confidence to get it to a PR, so a developer can review it and then just make minor changes to it. So low code, smaller items, we can get you out of the editor, get those out faster, so that, the more complex things where you have to be in the editor, we can be a partner with you to help give you advice and give you context, but both in the context of, kind of expanding the aperture of what an individual developer can handle.
Well, it's interesting because fixing a bug is much different than creating a new capability, right? And
sure.
Bug fixing, I've got to look at the logic, and I don't remember how I did that, or, it's a different math. There's an algebra to that and a calculus to how you create things. So it seems like one of the areas we can help developers a lot with is let's get rid of the algebra kinds of activities, just not to pick on algebra, but give you more options, more time to work on the things, really take the cognitive ability you've got.
100%. We always talk about reducing cognitive load. And I didn't think that was a good way to describe things. I'm like, who talks about cognitive load? Turns out everybody talks about it.
It is a topic to be seen.
It's a topic. And so, I'll give you an example of one of the ways we're trying to do that. Developers right now, they spend maybe 20 to 30% of their time actually writing code. They spend
sometimes less. But yes.
Sometimes less. They spend 70% doing a bunch of other things. I'll try to keep it clean. A bunch of other things.
It is a family show.
It is
okay.
A family environment. And some of that is just looking for content. Some of that is bug fixing, right? Some of that is how do I clean up my environment? A lot of it is actually supporting what's already in production today.
Yeah.
So one of the ways we're going to talk about in Compass that I mentioned before is how we can use AI to automatically identify things that we can fix for you before you as a developer have to manually go out. Case in point, and Mike talked about in the keynote, was cleaning up stale feature flags or being able to address security vulnerabilities that have been fed to us from third-party security tools, bringing it back to your security experience like that. But we call this thing auto-fix because we haven't got marketing involved yet. So auto-fix allows you to say, hey, I've recognized these things about your code in production that are providing an unhealthy environment for the components that you have under management.
The product name should be Toil.
Toil.
This thing fixes Toil.
Oh, I like Toil.
There you go.
That's a good one.
Well, if everybody
you better
on your
hurry
side.
up and copyright that thing before I get out of
that website running here.
Yeah. But that's a good example. The other way we're trying to reduce toil, you're going to hear an announcement. We just acquired a company called Optic for API documentation and management.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things we found is that People don't like writing documentation.
I've heard that.
Yeah, I've heard that. I hate writing. And so Optic allows us to automatically identify APIs, be able to create the documentation, and identify if the API and the documentation start to drift. And so we can flag those things before they become problematic in the future. And so that's going to be a big load off developers.
One of the challenges with APIs we don't always talk about is sort of the lifecycle management of APIs, right? Because they have versions, generations of them, backwards compatibility, sunset, deprecate, that kind of thing. Is that something that's going to be part of this
it'll let
today?
It'll let you track the whole life cycle of, from detect, manage, to retire.
Use that's been replaced by this, and use version 2 of that.
Well, what you'll see is what versions are in production, what dependencies of other services depend on that API. So like if you're going to upgrade a version, you can identify where all the different upstream, downstream relationships that you have to also upgrade at the same time, right? You can also build workflow to say, maybe if you want to update to a certain version, I can create an automation to identify all those different points and kick that off.
Is there, I'm curious because I'm not familiar with that particular technology. API first is the strategy, around building your software so that it uses its own APIs to do things. It's not sort of that outer inner shell.
It's just kind of a policy, like it's any cloud-based software fundamentals.
Like microservices,
APIs.
right?
Yep.
Exactly. Is there anything about this technology that you've acquired that will help you understand where you're using a large number of APIs, not just here's the 12 calls to do this and the 12 calls to do that?
I think the nice thing about it is it's often hard to find where the problems are. So you have tons of APIs you're talking about. Let's go thousands of APIs in your infrastructure, right? How do you know which ones are broken at any one time, right? Instead of just trying to surf through and figure things out, we can surface those up based on scorecards and health metrics to be able to point to which ones are broken, which ones need attention, which ones are out of compliance. So that's
You're going to sunset this in 3.5 months. So
yeah,
Baby Toil steps in and fixes it for you.
Exactly. Hey, Baby Toil. Is that what you call it? Baby Toil? Yeah. Auto Toil. Auto One Toil.
Auto Toil. Yeah. No toil.
D-Toil. We'll work on that. I'll get the marketing people.
Yeah. Clearly, I'm not marketing
involved
there.
Yeah.
So your talk around developer experience.
Yeah.
It's a great topic. It's one of the aspects of platform engineering, right? We talked about maybe did we forget the developer? Let's make sure that we're helping them. Again, productivity is a part of it, but it's a lot more than that.
It's a lot more than productivity, right? It's and by the way, developers are pretty wary whenever you talk about productivity.
Yeah, I'm here to help. I'm from this department. I'm here to help.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
What I've seen, and it's funny, I would say 9 out of 10 customers I talk to, when I ask them for I always ask, what are your big priorities? What are you working on? Developer experience, I would say 9 out of 10 is a top 3 initiative. AI is always in there. Developer experience, and then there's a wild card one. But in developer experience, it's been a lot more about enabling developers, like giving them the tools. So platform engineering is usually the buyer, and platform engineering is chartered with unblocking developers, giving them the tools they need to do all that toil less painfully, right? And so that's why, we position Compass for that to the platform engineering team, but we don't position it as a stick that they point to developers and beat them over the head with thou shalt comply. Even though it does compliance, which is what platform engineering likes, it also gives the developers reasons to come back. So that API documentation is one. Understanding software health is another. Understanding, for all these microservices that I got to go work on, your bug fix is an example. Something comes up, I'm on call, I have to go work on a component. Who knows anything about this component? Who wrote this component? What are the documentation details about it? It gives me all that information to reduce the toil. It all comes back to your branding, Mitch. You're like the soccer team.
Stop right here. I got to go register that for you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Well, you think about, today folks use Copilot and ChatGPT to explain code. They think about, now how can you productively both make that into documentation? Then again, I don't necessarily want to read all that documentation. I just want to know the few essential things that this does, make it easier to understand. It seems like that sort of balance is a place that AI could help us, maybe a lot of other places too.
AI, we're laying it all over the portfolio. Some of that is about taking a massive amount of text and boiling it down to that be brief, be gone that I mentioned before.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're doing that in JPD or Jira Product Discovery, acronyms, Jira Product Discovery in terms of taking all this like content that a product manager may write and succinctly write that down to something a human can consume. We're also doing that in Jira Line, as I mentioned before. And then some of the other things, actually, this funny, my favorite feature is just this thing called AI definitions. So you asked me, you corrected me when I said JPD. Holy cow, we have so many acronyms.
Yeah,
and just the ability to click on an acronym and understand a definition that AI can generate for me, and all the related information across our teamwork graph that's relevant to that, of like who works on that thing, what else has been written about it, what are the artifacts associated with it. In my day-to-day job, it's been one of the most incredibly helpful things, especially when I came on new to Atlassian. It was just an unbelievable time saver. So just
some of those acronyms, there's 2 or 3 definitions. I mean,
you go down the rabbit hole.
Exactly. Over in finance, they have another definition for.
Yeah, and that's as long as we can connect to it through the graph, we can define it, which is just amazingly powerful.
So while you're here, I'm going to steal a little bit of your thinking. I'm working on an analyst report. It's called DevOps Next. Like, where are we going next with DevOps? What's your outlook for DevOps, say in the next 12, 24, maybe? It's hard to predict past a week sometimes, but what's your view on kind of where we're going with DevOps?
Where am I going? This is a 35-minute answer?
You can't be wrong because I don't have the right answer to tell you you're wrong, so you're good.
Yeah. You know, I really think what we're going to see more and more is a movement left of code to be able to have a less skilled knowledge worker be able to create powerful code. We're going to see a massive amount of automation across the pipeline. And it's not about, and I think a lot of this is not about replacing people. That'll be a huge fear about this, but it'll be about how do we expand the amount of velocity we can deliver with the same team without having to try to double this like high skilled, high touch development organization. So I think you're going to see massive amounts of automation, crazy innovations around AI that just get us from the feedback signals that we hear from customers that we can listen to all these different channels to get that all the way to a PR in a fraction of the time that it takes today.
We were talking earlier with some other folks about citizen developers. Kind of AI is the new low-code, no-code in a way. I mean, in terms of enabling more people to contribute.
Yeah, we've talked about citizen developers for a long time, right? And these low-code platforms, people didn't have the patience for them. It's still quite a bit of work to do.
Spreadsheets were the first low-code, no-code, and you still got to learn a lot to know how to leverage that, right?
100%. But I do think like one of the ways that I would take that would be, we talk a lot about Jira here and the coming together of Jira software and Jira work management into a single product, right? I would absolutely see a marketing team, for example, being able to initiate the code creation process now. So a different take on citizen developer, it still starts with an issue or a request, like a business need that they have.
Build me an MVP or something.
Build me an MVP. Right? I'm going to get to that so much faster than I did before. I think the other piece...
Think of the time we would save, not going down 20 paths, but get there faster, right? Fail fast.
So the just the velocity of innovation of what we can create, iterate on, and maybe fail fast. We've had this mentality of, Agile is about, iterating, failing fast, learning from that. That cycle is going to get exceptionally faster.
So if I was, you don't know about me as your customer, but if I was one of your enterprise customers and I had a chance to sit down with you, Matt, what would you say, this is what I think you should be preparing your organization for? Let's say we're moderately good. We've been doing DevOps for a while. It's not a new thing here, but it's coming faster and more direction of all the stuff we got to do. What kind of things would you advise your customers to kind of get yourself prepared for. This is what you can do to help get to that kind of a future.
First of all, I would be clear on what are the key platforms you're going to depend on in the organization. I would try to simplify the ecosystem across development teams. Some organizations are still so exceptionally fragmented.
And it's hard, yeah.
It's super hard, but consolidation and standardization have real value. That's one. I would get clear on what you need to own as a development team and what you can source out. So understand what's your core differentiator and focus your most high value developers on that. And then I would get super comfortable on leveraging AI. I talk to a lot of, that sounds kind of like, no kidding. Well, so many companies are risk averse they're worried about, what's happening with their data. You've got to lean into it because just the rate of change around AI, it's not a fad. This is unlike anything I've seen. And I had a lot of hair when I started in technology years ago, right? It's exceptionally transformative, and it's going to disrupt every industry. So you got to get in front of it now.
Well, I have a deal for you. You are welcome to use Toil or however you want to brand it. If I could use your extending our view left kind of into the product organization, how things get created as part of that.
I'll have my lawyers call your lawyers and we'll negotiate.
I tell you what, we'll write it on the back of this,
all right.
this card and we're good. All right, man. It's great talking to you, Matt.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks again.
Matt Schvimmer, who is head of SVP of Agile and DevOps here at Atlassian. So we just plugged in some free advice for you there. I was trying to do my best to channel what a customer might ask for. So I'm sure there's a lot of great information that you could get. Good luck. I'm glad you're doing the developer experience session.
Thank you so much.
Folks will get a lot out of it.
I'm in Thursday.
Okay. All righty. Matt Schvimmer. We will be back with another great interview. The talent here is just phenomenal at no end. Every person we talk to just brings something to the table you can't get anywhere else. So thanks to Matt and others. We'll be back in a minute.